Hello, and welcome to another MarketMuse content strategy webinar. And today's discussion is going to be about Clubhouse. Our amazing guest today, who is really positioned as the expert in Clubhouse. She's the president of Ruby Media Group, active on Clubhouse. And I'm so happy to be able to ask her to join us today and share her experience and what she's learned, best practices, public relations, social media management to a Clubhouse experience. Chris Ruby, thanks for joining us.
Jeff, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you today to talk all things Clubhouse.
So tell us a little story about your life so far that's included Clubhouse, what you've seen, what are the types of things that you've personally experienced, and anything that before we get started with our conversation that you want to set as setting the bar for Clubhouse and how you're thinking about it right now.
I believe that Clubhouse certainly rewards intellect. It rewards someone truly being a subject matter expert, because if you're not, you'll quickly get kicked off the stage, or other people can tell. You just won't be able to sustain a conversation or to be able to answer the rapid fire questions you'll get in real time if you're a speaker on the stage. So that's why I'm very excited about Clubhouse from a subject matter expert standpoint.
And so when you're thinking about how this, applies to, should I be managing my social media platform? Should I be managing my Clubhouse platform in the same way that I'm managing my social media platform, my LinkedIn profile?
Of course. Well, one, even if you're not interested in doing anything at all on Clubhouse, you should still absolutely get your handle for your name and take it before someone else does. You should also get the .club domain for your name before someone else takes that. Those seem to be very popular right now. Again, just hold it in case, to make sure no one else takes that. But yes, absolutely, from a marketing perspective, I think that this is worth checking out. I think that this is going to breed a new version of media personalities. And it's interesting because people seem to do well on this platform that may never have been on the conference circuit or the stage to begin with, but introverted type people are really attracted to this platform who may never have wanted to speak in front of 5,000 people to keynote at a conference before the pandemic, but now on Clubhouse, they can do it from their room.
Well, what are the types of things that you think are most disruptive about Clubhouse for PR?
So the authority building and brand building expertise that you can put your clients' expertise up on stage with the other social media influencers that otherwise would be very difficult to, for example, get them booked with. If you wanted to do an event with them, you'd be going back and forth from a PR perspective, like at least 20 emails deep.
I got that fear of missing out when there's people at these events whose information I value, or whose intellect or whose insights may be interesting to me, and I've already felt it. How do you manage a schedule when it can be so intrusive? It's so much time, and is it worth the time? How do you think about that?
So I think it is worth the time that you're putting in, but I think you bring up a valid point that it's not going to be a direct marketing activity. Now, for some people it is, and you hear people talking about closing leads and deals all day long from Clubhouse. I think it's more long lead and relationship building. So that's how I see it, and warming up that cycle and building relationships. I don't know that I see it as much as the micro events as I see it as an extension of your brand in different areas that you may otherwise not be in or have those conversations in, simply because it takes too much time on the front end or the back end to do that production work.
How do you think about that from the standpoint of coaching somebody of what they should be thinking about to be effective on the platform?
So if you're not media trained, you shouldn't be on Clubhouse. I want to say that again.
There's the tweet right there.
Media training should be required for anyone before they go on Clubhouse, because what happens is you feel like you're in this intimate conversation and you forget that even though it's against their TOS to record the calls, of course people can record the calls, that it's just like being on TV. Even though it feels private and intimate, you still need to remember that you have an audience. And I also think what's interesting is that when these rooms get super large, you start to lose track of who that audience is, because you're focused on moderating a room or being a speaker. So if you then lose focus of that and start clicking on everyone's face in that room, that's going to be really distracting, and it's going to make for a lower quality conversation.
And that may just be the maturity of the platform. There's a lot of things that it doesn't do because it is so extraordinarily lightweight and casual. So will the commercialization of Clubhouse bring us things that we could jeopardize its cool factor.
I'm so curious to see what happens, at least with the influencer marketing here. Are we going to start to see sponsored rooms and branded rooms? For example, if there is a conversation around, if there's a dog club or a pet club, and you have a big brand, I don't know, Chewy, maybe they decide that they want to sponsor that room. And what does that look like? So these conversations are already happening.
I've been on some rooms so far where I feel like if it was recorded, some of the people in that room would be frightened out of their wits. Are you seeing that same thing happen?
Yes. So I'm seeing two different dynamics there. So as soon as it says recording in the title, the conversation is totally different. It's a little more stiff. People, it just sounds like a podcast again, and people are, as you said, much more afraid to say what they really think because they're monitoring.
Cool. So yeah, I want to get into a little bit more about where we see it headed. But I also, do you feel like they're likely going to be doing things like maybe tracking and recording it on their own so that they can have audio search, or that like doing their own transcription so that they can create an archive of all of their rooms? Is that their obligation that's they're going to do, or do you even see them even thinking about that?
I certainly see it as an obligation. Not only audio search is a great point that you bring up, but I see it as their obligation for the deaf and hard of hearing population, because they have said that this is an inclusive platform that was not inclusive for a large percentage of the population.
Would this even be accessible for somebody who is hard of hearing or deaf? Could they even actively use the application to be a moderator?
Yeah, so I think they have to address all of that.
Yeah.
I don't think could they be? I don't think so.
I think it'd be very challenging, given the skills that one needs, I think, to be very effective in as a moderator with Clubhouse. And from your standpoint, what do you think are the skills one should focus on if they're thinking about moderating or they're moderating? What is like your meets minimum? And then obviously you said media training, but what other things should you be thinking about?
I'm so glad you brought this up. So the skills to be an effective moderator on Clubhouse. One, I think you have to be really good at reading the room. You need to understand the dynamic of the room, the tone of the room. And I also think if you are a moderator, you have this tremendous amount of responsibility that's placed on you. It's not as fun as just having this green badge and saying, I'm going to lead this room. You become responsible for anything and everything that goes on in that room. If anyone reports it, it's technically your room that's getting reported. And so I think you have to inherently be a strong leader. You have to work at it every day. And I'd love to know your thoughts on that as well, Jeff.
I think that the learning curve is still extraordinarily high. However, there's no barrier to entry here. So what I feel is if people are going through that right now, they're like, whoa, I'm on center stage. I have never done this before. Should I be preparing this? Am I good at this? I want to tie this to search engine optimization and content strategy. This isn't something new either in the search engine optimization space, in the affiliate marketing space. There are triangulation schemes that exist throughout the web on people who I'm not actually promoting something directly, but I'm promoting someone else or their network who is supported by ad revenue or supported by affiliate revenue. I think what I'm already starting to see in some of these communications is,
it's amazing, because normally when you think about affiliate marketers, you think about so many different things in terms of, oh, it has to say, there's all these regulations about how things should be, not to say that they're always followed, as you bring up.
So the other thing I wanted to talk about is how is this a big thing for SEOs? I think when we were talking about it, you were like, man, it's not very clear to me that it even is.
Let's talk about that. So first, update me with some new developments that you saw. I know you did some research in this area. So what's going on with Google and indexing?
So they are starting to index event pages, but these event pages are thin. They are thin content. And so these pages are acting like thin content pages, but this site has such a massive velocity of excitement and authority, and there's a lot of people linking to these things that these pages are going to appear. They're going to appear for exact match on the actual events themselves. They're going to appear for probably some really complex queries that involve the people who are named and associated with the event, and some substrings of those queries. It's just naturally going to happen that way. And one thing I'm imagining is that Clubhouse is going to need to consult with a technical SEO person, and they're going to build an infrastructure or archive of these events. It's just a natural progression as they mature. And that's something that they're probably maybe even not considering, but they should. And what I also see as potentially in the future is that just like rich media optimization, let's say you had an event that was in, I'm trying to think of this time of year and what events I should be going to, but if it weren't for the pandemic, let's just say we're going to Content Tech in San Diego, right? The people that go to those shows and really take repurposing and event marketing and relationship building seriously, they have pre-interviews with people that will be at the event. They do session reviews. They talk about the event. They build content. They take snippets, they tweet, and by adding value, but also by profiling which sessions were great, how to really be a pro at this particular event. And I think that there's an avenue, and I'm already starting to see it, for people to act as repurposing experts of the sessions and the clubs that they're attending. So it's not just creating those event pages, it's I'm using the audio just like I'm using the content of an event or a speaker session or a workshop to make my own presence.
So actually, you just made me think about, how does EAT, right? I think EAT probably directly does apply to this with Clubhouse. When we're talking about building up expertise, authority, and trust, this is a great way to do that. And I think one way you can do that is by taking screenshots of you adjacent to other influencers on the stage. So does that have a direct SEO value? I don't know, but it certainly could help build your authority.
It's all about the transition of this audio to other forms to become valuable, right? So it has no natural transcription, right? It isn't being archived in search. So it's somebody taking the audio and turning it into other media. And so when you basically take a screenshot of the phone, you're turning an audio session into a image. If you are then writing about that session and you're writing a synopsis or a summary, it's just like writing a untranscribed podcast show note effectively. So it's about that repurposing and transitioning, and the people who are really good at that, I think there's a great opportunity to start to run with that and be very good at rich media optimization here. And I'm already starting to see it. People talking about what they heard on Clubhouse, but that isn't a natural thing. It's not just going to happen naturally. It's someone that has to actively consider the value and know the value of repurposing.
So Jeff, do you think, is there inherent value to you, in your opinion, of doing this if you're not recording and you're not repurposing and you're just having disappearing conversations, going back to your content strategies?
I think you have to know the types of outcomes that make it valuable. So relationship building, absolutely. You're really making sure that if you are truly a genuine human and you actually care about others, this is a great application for you, because it comes through. It really comes through who cares and who doesn't in these conversations.
Yes and no, but to your other point, we also have a lot of genuine people or not genuine people that are dominating the platform. So that's the unfortunate reality here. And so my advice for those people, if you feel that way, and I certainly feel that way in those larger rooms, I just try not to go into them, because I don't find them satisfying in any way. And some people will say, oh, I thought there'd be more people in this room. And to those people, I would say, this is not like an ego-based activity to see how many people you can get in an audience or how many followers you could get. That's not my use case of it. What about you, Jeff?
I've been trying to do is really think about that. And I try to do that with every social media that I add to my ever expanding list of stuff to do, because frankly, social media endeavors, community management endeavors, events, if they're going to be ongoing maintenance required efforts, I think you've got to take that into account before you really jump in. But I do mention that Clubhouse has a no barrier to entry situation, so you can hop in and then you're gone. You don't even need to dive in. So that's what made me even want to give it a shot, frankly. But what I've done is I've really started to think about why I think this is important. So I do see a lot of value there, and I'm continuing to keep tabs on this and just say, and after every session, just thinking about it, what's my takeaway? Why was this worth my time?
When I think about who is really best primed to take advantage of this platform, my answer would be content marketers. But I think that to be successful, you have to understand what that mission is. And if you want to create a movement, understand what that movement is before you create a club, before you host rooms, before you really are active on there, so that people look at why people are joining clubs or are tuning in for your show week after week. It's because they are aligning with the mission that you have set forth. And I will say this to your point, Jeff, that you're right, it is a lot of work. This isn't the same as saying I'm opening up a Twitter account and I'm going to tweet when I feel like it, once every 6 months, or who knows, once every day. You have to, if you really want to build a following here, you have to think of it like a podcast or a TV show, that you are committing that every week we will be back at the same time, like what we're doing, where we will be there 5 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday night from 5 to 6 in the content marketing, PR, and SEO group. Come ask your questions so people can plan their lives around that.
I think the one thing we can say is that the Clubhouse application developers are product managers of what I would consider, this is what product-led growth is, and they're showing it. And this is something that has the ability to create 4 million new accounts in 2 weeks.